Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Back to the sweet old place, sweet home Chicago. Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Back to the sweet old place, sweet home Chicago. One and one's two, two and two is four. Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Back to the sweet old place, sweet home Chicago. Let me play the blues for you.
Hello and welcome to the Delta Cultural Center's 30th anniversary. We are so excited for you to be with us today. And that was Akeem Kemp that just performed, and he's one of our featured artists that you can hear pretty regularly at our Front Porch Blues Bash, which happens during King Biscuit Festival. Well, I am joined by my co-host, Kim Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, Dr. Miller. It's so good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
I'm thrilled to be here. Many people may not know, or that know me, my start was actually here at the Delta Cultural Center.
That's right.
Right now, I am a travel writer for Arkansas Tourism and the director of Arkansas's Great River Road. And of course, Arkansas Tourism is a part, as the Delta Cultural Center is, of the Arkansas Department of Parks, Heritage, and Tourism. So we're family again.
So you remember when the merger happened? I think I remember I called you and I
Yes.
said, Kim, we work together again.
Yes, and he was like, now you can come down here and help me more. And I'm like, well, I thought I helped more as it was. But yes, no, and I was thrilled. It was like everything I knew over the past 20 years was coming together as one.
Yeah, it was
So
really cool.
It was thrilling.
Really cool.
It was
Really
thrilling.
cool. Really cool. And so, you know, the Delta Cultural Center is very important, not only in the region of the Delta, but also in the state.
I agree 110%. You know, I thought a lot since you've called me and asked me to come here and do this. And what I've realized is that I've always loved my part of Arkansas, Eastern Arkansas. I grew up, still live in Marianna, worked here in Helena for 10 years.
Yeah.
I did not necessarily know that that was what creates the Arkansas Delta. But what I have learned since then, having worked at the DCC for 10 years now, working at Parks and Tourism for about 14, is that so much of Arkansas's history has happened in the eastern section of Arkansas.
Yeah.
And it's something that people need to know. They need to know more about. We have lived part of it, but it's a very important part of Arkansas and of Arkansas's history.
Absolutely. I mean, and even, working here, I've learned things about the Delta, and I grew up here.
Oh, same. I mean, I grew up one county above you. And in fact, in college, I minored in history. And one of the classes that I took, I'll never forget, Dr. Michael Dugan's Arkansas history. And I would learn some things. But when I started at the DCC, I learned things about the Arkansas Delta that I had never known. I had never heard of Jerome and Rower, which were the Japanese-American internment camps during World War II. The Sultana disaster, which is still America's largest maritime disaster.
Yeah.
So much of the history of Arkansas started in the Arkansas Delta. All we have to do is talk about Arkansas Post, which was the first European settlement in the late 1600s. And then we talk about Louisiana Purchase.
Absolutely.
Where the survey of the 1803, the lands that were brought into the United States, which actually, I believe, doubled the size of the country. So all of that happened here in the Arkansas Delta, not to mention the great food, the great culture, and the great people.
Which you can't beat it. You
Nope,
just can't beat
can't beat it with stick.
It's nothing like the Delta.
No, absolutely. Agree 110%.
So we were talking also earlier, and we were preparing for this urban legend about
Okay.
how the Delta Culture Center started. So you got to tell this story.
Okay, so I'm going to tell this story, and I'm sure Ernest or Kathy or, someone may see this or hear this or watch this and say, that's not true. But what I was told. So I was told that then Governor Bill Clinton was in Helena for one of the King Biscuit Blues festivals, and it was raining, as it sometime often does during King Biscuit. And so it's my understanding the city of Helena owned the depot building. And so someone said, well, let's take him in the depot to get him out of the rain. But the roof of the depot was in such bad shape, he was getting just as wet inside the depot as he would have standing outside under an umbrella. But what he realized is, it's a really cool building. And his point was, we need to save this. This is something important. We need to preserve this part of Arkansas and tell its history. And thus, the Delta Cultural Center began.
And
Thank you, President Clinton.
Thank you, President Clinton. And he wasn't playing, because they did the groundbreaking that March of 1990, and by that October of 1990, the depot opened.
Was open and has grown and grown and grown in these 30 years. I mean, even in the years since I've been gone, you guys have added Bethel Heritage Hall, thanks to the Solomons. You've added all of these things and are doing all of these things.
Yeah,
and
7 properties.
7 properties.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, but it tells the story of this section of the Arkansas Delta. And it tells the story of the entire Arkansas Delta, 27 counties. And a lot of people always say, what is the Delta? Okay, I'm going to say this. The Department of Arkansas Heritage defines the Arkansas Delta as the 27 counties that were directly impacted by the flood of 1927. Other people will say other things, Delta Byways, which is one of our tourism organizations, it's 15 counties. But for when we talk about the Delta and the Delta Cultural Center, it is 27 counties in eastern Arkansas. And that's a lot of area, but we are so different from, say, the Ozarks or, the Southwest Arkansas. And that's okay.
Yes.
But we're special.
And that's the amazing thing about Arkansas, is just all the diversity across the whole state. And that's what makes it so cool.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I have had the honor of bringing international visitors and writers into Arkansas, and they are always amazed of, all of these different areas that we have, these geographic and geological areas. But they always do seem to think that there's something special about the Arkansas Delta. Now, do I push that on them? Possibly, because I do believe that the Arkansas Delta is the best of Arkansas.
Hey, I can't argue.
I'm biased.
Hey, and I can't argue with that. We now have a story that talks a little bit about the history of the Delta Culture Center and gives an overview of how the Delta Culture Center started. So just watch this story.
Helena, Arkansas, along the banks of the mighty Mississippi River in Phillips County, was chosen as home for a new visionary museum, the Delta Cultural Center. The Delta Cultural Center opened on October 30th, 1990, with a huge celebration that included Governor Bill Clinton, other state and local dignitaries, musicians, and hundreds of spectators. Located at a restored 1912 Missouri and Pacific Railroad depot, the DCC was established to document and interpret the rich culture of the Arkansas Delta. The train depot was initially only the first phase through a proposed 6-part, $8.5 million project designed to bring a boost to the area's economy. The original visitor center contained an information desk designed to look like an old depot or bank teller window where people could learn about the museum and other local attractions. Exhibits included panels featuring written text and photos along with documents and artifacts. This covered everything from rural life to music. There was even a restored caboose adjacent to the center which could be explored. A multi-purpose room for educational programs along with a gift shop rounded out the center. From these humble beginnings, the Delta Cultural Center would experience tremendous growth over the next 30 years. The DCC began to present Helena radio station KFFA's King Biscuit Time from the depot at 95 Missouri Street in 1992.
Pass the biscuits, 'cause it's King Biscuit Time here on KFFA.
King Biscuit Time is the longest-running blues radio program in the country and featured disc jockey and music master Sunshine Sonny Payne as host. After a decade of visitors and entertainment, the Department of Arkansas Heritage decided it was time to expand. So in 2000, the museum was temporarily closed for about 6 months to undergo extensive renovations and installation of new interactive exhibits. With its reopening, the DCC now encompasses 2 locations, the original depot, but also an historic storefront along Cherry Street. For 30 years, the Delta Cultural Center has proudly told the story of the 27 counties in eastern Arkansas through exhibitions, educational, cultural, and historic activities and events. The center is always changing and adapting to better serve the needs of the region, and it is an honor to celebrate our 30th anniversary.
And now we will have another performance by Detroit Johnny.
I want you to rock me, honey, rock me all night long. I want you to rock me, Annie Mae, honey, rock me all night long. I want you to rock me, baby, love me, don't leave me alone. I want you to rock me, baby, till I hair rise on my head. Rock me pretty, baby, honey, please don't let me stay. I want
Rock me, baby, till the cows come home. Rock me pretty, baby, honey. Please don't leave me alone. I'm gonna rock me, baby. Rock me all night long. I'm gonna rock me, baby. Hold it. Oh, yeah. I want you to love me and don't leave me alone. Roll it. Rock me, baby. Rock me slow. Rock me pretty, baby. No, I don't want no more. I'm gonna rock me, baby. Rock me all night long. I want you to rock me, baby. Love me, don't leave me alone. Oh, yeah.
And that was Detroit Johnny. Wasn't he awesome? Detroit Johnny is one of the people that we typically see a lot at the King Biscuit Blues Festival. And you see a lot of famous people at the Blues Festival.
Yes. Now, I have to, sometimes during the Blues Festival, sometimes just during a regular day. So I'll tell you this story.
Yeah, tell me about it, because I remember you were saying about sometimes in the early days.
Yes. And so years ago, when you walk into the front of the Visitor Center, we have
at the DCC.
At the Delta Cultural Center, you have what we call lovingly the Cube. So I was working the Cube one day, and of course the entrance faces Cherry Street. And depending on the time of day, if the sun is coming in, you basically can just see an outline of a person. And so this person walked in, and I'm like, wow, that looks like, and he's still coming toward me, and I'm like, that looks like, and then he spoke, and it was Elvis Costello.
Elvis Costello.
Well, I'm not even going to try to do an accent, but yes. And the reason that he was here was to see Sunshine Sunny Payne, one of my favorite people in the world.
Okay, tell everybody who's Sunshine Sunny Payne is. Sunshine
Sunny Payne, of course, was the longtime host of King Biscuit Time, the longest daily running blues show in the United States. And Mr. Sunny hosted from, I believe, 1951 until he passed away a few years ago. Yeah. And all of these people would come to see Mr. Sunny because he knew everybody. I mean, he remembered Robert Johnson. He was best friends with Robert Lockwood Jr. Yeah. He knew everybody. And here was Elvis Costello. And somehow it got back to Little Rock, and it got to the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, and someone called me and said, did you take a picture? And I'm like, yeah. So that was my first photo credit in the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, and probably the last one. But, you never knew who was going to walk in. Yeah. Juan Williams from Fox News one day, and I think it was not long after, and I may have my years wrong, but he had written that great book, Eyes on the Prize, about the civil rights struggle. And so he was coming in, and he looked around. Bruce Hornsby, who was a Grammy-winning artist, brought his son from, I believe, California, I could be wrong, but on his spring break because he wanted him to learn about blues music and the importance of it. Wow. So you just never knew who may walk through the door. And then, of course, during King Biscuit Blues Festival, it's off the table. You never know. I mean, all of these great people, because they always wanted to come in and sit down and do King Biscuit Time with Mr. Sunny.
And you know what's interesting about that, even besides the famous people, all of the international people, because on any given day,
yes,
even still, we
Japanese,
get people,
Chinese, Mr. Sunny was internationally known.
Yeah.
And to him, and to him, it was nothing. I mean, it was just a normal day, but when we were getting together, his studio, when we opened in 2000, we opened the Visitor Center, I would sit and just talk to him. And he would drop names like, Liza Minnelli. And he would talk about, Frank Sinatra, and he would spend time out in Las Vegas. And I mean, but to him, it was just people he knew.
Yeah.
But he was an amazing man. And every time I walk into the visitor center, I still think about him. Yeah.
Amazing
He was
guy.
amazing.
Amazing guy. He'll definitely be missed.
Yo, always. Always.
And so talk about a little bit about Ernest and Kathy Cunningham, because we know that they were extremely instrumental in assisting in getting the Delta Cultural Center in Phillips County.
Oh, without a doubt. And I can't remember if I mentioned, when I started in January of 2007, in 1997. See, my years I'm telling my age now. We were between directors at the Delta Cultural Center. And so Kathy was the interim director for a while. But even before then, she and Mr. Ernest, who of course was former Speaker of the House, and they knew people, but they loved Helena. They loved that museum.
Yes.
They still do. I mean, absolutely two of the strongest supporters of the museum and of this town that I have ever worked with in the years since. So we were always so lucky to have them on our side. And if I was planning, when we would do events or things like that, Kathy was always the first person that I talked to, because I knew she would be there, and I knew she would help us get the word out, because she believed in the Delta Cultural Center and what we were doing. So I can say that I believe if it weren't for the two of them, the Delta Cultural Center would not be what it is today. And so, speaking of, I do believe that we have a message from Kathy and Ernest Cunningham from their new home in Little Rock.
It's great to help celebrate 30 years of the Delta Cultural Center's educational efforts. Ernest and I have enjoyed being involved with them and with historic preservation for many years, beginning with the restoration and creation of the Edwardian Inn in the early 80s, then the restoration of our own home and other local properties over the years. We have also been actively involved with economic development efforts and tourism enhancements for our community and county. Ernest served as a member of the Arkansas House of Legislature for 30 years, and I, as a board member of the State Historic Preservation Alliance, helped establish the Arkansas Main Street program and served on their board for many years. It only seems natural that our lives would lead us to support the development of something like the Delta Cultural Center.
I also am so proud that the work the Delta Cultural Center has done over the past 30 years to celebrate our history and culture. I'm pleased to have played a small part. In 1987, I was sworn in as Speaker of the Arkansas House of Representatives and wanted to do all in my power to support education and economic development in our community and county. In the fall of 1986, Main Street Helena held their first King Biscuit Blues Festival. An article about the festival appeared in the New York Times. It was written by Robert Palmer, and the article attracted the attention of Governor Bill Clinton, and he and I began to discuss how Helena and West Helena might benefit from festivals such as the King Biscuit, and also how to educate ourselves and others about our diverse history. Soon after the completion of the 1987 legislative session, Bill mentioned again that he would like to meet with a group from Helena to discuss future activities which Helena might take to advance these opportunities. Mayor Sammy Berkata, some downtown business owners, and the Main Street Helena director accompanied Kathy and me to a meeting in the governor's office. The purpose of the meeting was twofold: how to revitalize a hard-pressed Delta town and how to highlight the various cultures of the area. I remember the governor addressing us to dream big.
Yes, after that initial meeting, we returned to Helena and held several brainstorming sessions with the mayor, the chamber leaders, Main Street Helena board, downtown business owners, bankers, and to incorporate ideas from the community as to what it could mean to dream big. Ernest began the process of preparing for the next legislative session and development of legislation that could be introduced to establish and build the facilities for a new state agency outside of Little Rock, which was especially hard to do at that time in the Delta.
Yes, I worked with the legislative staff and members of the Legislative Council and the joint budget on the proposed legislation and details of a new agency within the Department of Heritage. I also encouraged the governor to provide funding immediately upon passing of the legislation early in the 1989 session. These funds would be used to hire a consultant to develop a comprehensive plan for the necessary building and other facilities, as well as programming for this new agency to be known as the Delta Cultural Center. With that initial grant funding, the Whitzel, Evans, and Masco architects and planners and other groups were hired to begin the process. Again, as I say, the rest is history.
And one final note, everyone should realize that the Delta Cultural Center has had growing pains over the years and probably still does with regard to funding each biennium. It started with only 3 staff in the restored Union Pacific Depot. Over the next several years, the Visitor Center and Educational Complex was added with a few more staff each year. As the center has grown and evolved, I can still remember the director of the Department of Heritage begging Ernest, as a member of the legislature, not to give her any more children without shoes, meaning no more properties without funding for staff.
Ernest and Kathy Cunningham. And Ernest and Kathy, anytime you want to come on back home, just come on back home.
They'll always be in the Delta.
Of course.
They may have their location may have moved for a while, but
Sure.
I'm sure that their heart is still here in Helena. And
yeah.
you know, the Delta Cultural Center would not be what it is today without Ernest and Kathy Cunningham.
And along with Ernest and Kathy, there were a lot of other people that were instrumental in Delta Cultural Center.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, from the day that I came here for the first time, Bobby Heffington, who was a longtime deputy director of the Department of Arkansas Heritage, Bobby believed in the Delta Cultural Center. She believed in Helena. She believed in the mission.
Yes.
And always encouraged us to learn. You know, we started building that great library that you guys have upstairs at the Visitor Center. And I would, you know, order books and then read them and, you know, then put them up for other staff. And it was because of that that my history of the Arkansas Delta in my head was built up. I mean, because so much of that, as we mentioned before, I didn't know, but until I came to the Delta Cultural Center.
I wanted to ask you something. So in the early days of the Delta Cultural Center, there was a lot of scholarly literature that was written.
Oh, absolutely.
That was actually quoted and referenced in Blood in Our Eyes, Grit Stockley,
Yes.
and several others.
Yes.
Was Bobby behind a lot of that push, or others such as that, or?
You know, I can't speak to that, but it would make sense. And people like Mark Christ, who had
Yes.
been at Arkansas Historic Preservation Program, and the history of Helena, you know, and I'm talking about from the 1700s when Sylvanus Phillips came to the area. And that is, you know, that makes Helena one of the oldest communities in Arkansas. And there were so many people in those years after the Delta Cultural Center first began that there needed to be, like you said, scholarly research done.
Yeah.
And so we worked with all kinds of authors, not just, you know, a lot of people think that it focuses just on the blues, but that's definitely not true. I mean, we can look at your family. You know, Eliza and Abraham, great. Did I get enough greats in there?
Actually, just great.
Just great? Okay. You know, and all of the things that they did for the Arkansas Delta and the immigrants that came into this area. And, you know, those are things that people needed to do research on. We needed to learn more about it.
Yes.
As well as I remember when we were working on Main Street of the Blues, which was a great exhibit
Yes.
in the Visitor Center.
I remember that exhibit. Very good exhibit.
beautiful exhibit, and we learned so much. But as the staff would research and talk to people and do oral histories, we learned about, say, DeWitt Jordan, the amazing African-American painter and artist that was from Helena. And, that was just in talking to people and talking to the community, because many people in the community were so supportive because they felt that it was a story that needed to be told.
Or even fast forwarding and someone of that vein, but more so in the photography, Roger Lane Johnson.
Oh, yes. I loved working with the Johnson family. And Mr. Roger Lane had some absolutely positively amazing historical photos. And they were always so good to work with. They were, the family was great. The family was great. And that is part of the history of the Arkansas Delta, without a doubt.
Yeah. And speaking of history, we have a young man that's about to perform who is always a fan favorite around here. And his name is Philip Stackhouse, and he is the grandson of Houston Stackhouse, who was in the band of King Biscuit Time. Philip Stackhouse, take it away.
I've got a kind-hearted woman, do anything in this world for me. I've got a kind-hearted woman, do anything in this world for me. But these evil women, they just won't let me be. She don't love me. Oh, no. I love my baby. Say, but my baby, she don't love me. No. I really love that pretty woman. I can't stand to let her be. Stay right there. Woo! Said it ain't but that one thing, babe, that makes me wanna drain. Get all worried all about you, baby. I begin to think, baby. Ooh, my life just ain't the same. I raise my heart to hear you call someone else's name now. I love my baby, but my baby, she don't love me. I love my baby, but my baby, she don't love me. No, no, no. I said I love that pretty woman. She just won't let me be. Stay right there.
The Delta Cultural Center is a campus comprised of 9 properties. Along with its main museum galleries at the Visitor Center and the train depot are the Cherry Street Pavilion, an outdoor venue for concerts, family gatherings, educational events, and private parties. It was constructed as a permanent outdoor stage with a covered pavilion. The Cherry Street Pavilion is in the Cherry Street Historic District directly across from the Delta Cultural Visitors Center. Bethel Heritage Hall. Formerly known as Temple Bethel, this Jewish temple was built in 1916 and, for years, was home to a vibrant Jewish community in Helena. After years of service as a synagogue, the congregation decided to donate it to the Delta Cultural Center and Department of Arkansas Heritage in 2001. After an extensive renovation, Bethel Heritage Hall hosts numerous educational and community programs. The Miller Annex. Originally known as the Miller Hotel, this downtown venue provides space for DCC activities like musical events, presentations, classroom events, and other programs. Fort Curtis. Dedicated May 11, 2012, is a reconstructed Union Civil War fort. Smaller in size than the original Fort Curtis, this site includes exhibits and 2 replica cannons and tells how slaves enlisted into the Civil War. Freedom Park. Dedicated February 23, 2013, this park honors the nearly 2,000 freedom seekers who came to Helena to find a new life. It tells how African Americans sought freedom at Helena while Union Army soldiers stationed in Phillips County during the Civil War. Battery C. To defend Helena during the Civil War, Union General Benjamin Prentiss authorized the construction of earthen forts known as batteries in the hills above Helena. The heaviest fighting of the Battle of Helena took place at Battery C on July 4, 1863. Moore Horner House. This house was initially constructed in 1859 by Arthur Thompson. During the Civil War, it was the headquarters of Union General Frederick Sullivan. After belonging to the Moore and Horner families for 118 years, the house was donated to Arkansas and came under the Delta Cultural Center's control. In its new role as history teller, the Moore Horner House will eventually share a view of the past with its visitors. It will host educational events, community programs, and tours. Interstate Grocery was located on Walnut Street in Helena and was the King Biscuit Time program's original sponsor. After closing, the building began to decline. Eventually, the property came under the control of the Delta Cultural Center. There's an old truck with advertising on the side and historical panels at the site today.
And now we're going to receive some congratulatory remarks from some beloved fans of the Delta Cultural Center.
Hi, I'm Governor Asa Hutchinson. For 30 years, the Delta Cultural Center has been preserving and interpreting the cultural heritage of the Arkansas Delta, a 27-county region that encompasses much of eastern Arkansas. Because of the center's dedication to sharing the Delta with the world, we know about the musicians of the Arkansas Delta who have enhanced our lives with the blues and gospel and country music. The center's work has spread the work of the Delta's painters, crafters, and quilters so that we can learn their stories through their art. Because of the Cultural Center, we have learned about the Delta cooks with their special touches and recipes. Their versions of ribs and rice and catfish have graced our tables. These talents that develop naturally in homes, at ice cream socials, at community dances, and at dinners on the church grounds have matured into an art form that characterizes this place that is like no other. The Delta Cultural Center shines a light on this rich cultural heritage and makes it available for the rest of us to enjoy. The center, with the support of the Arkansas Department of Parks, Heritage, and Tourism, ensures that the Delta and its contributions are known far beyond Arkansas. Thank you for those 30 years.
For the past 30 years, the Delta Cultural Center has been preserving the history and the culture of the Arkansas Delta. The Arkansas Delta is a 27-county area in eastern and southeastern Arkansas, and this year it celebrates its 30th anniversary. So thank you to everyone that had a hand in creating the Delta Cultural Center, and thank you to everyone that's ever worked there. The Delta Cultural Center is under the leadership of Dr. Kyle Miller and his assistant, Mr. Thomas Jacks. So put the Delta Cultural Center on your to-do list. You'll be glad that you did.
Congratulations to the Arkansas Department of Heritage and the Delta Cultural Center on the 30th anniversary. of the Delta Cultural Center. It doesn't seem like that long ago, but I remember moving back home in 1989 when I got out of the Navy. And there was so much anticipation about the center opening. And I'm going to tell you something. You've done everything that you said you were going to do, and the center has been just as wonderful as everybody promised it would be. Thank you so much for keeping our culture alive, and here's to 30 more years.
Hey, it's Stacy Hurst here, Secretary of the Arkansas Department of Parks, Heritage, and Tourism, and I just want to add my congratulations to all of the good folks at the Delta Cultural Center over in Helena. Thanks for all that you all do, and I'm joining you in celebrating this 30th anniversary of your institution. We are so proud of you. You make life better in the Delta. You bring visitors into the state of Arkansas, and I just want to thank you for your good work and add my congratulations on your 30th anniversary.
I want me a jet black woman. High yellow can't do me no good. I want me a jet black woman. High yellow can't do me no good. You know she's my kind of woman, and I want it understood. Jet black woman, just as smooth as a winter night. Jet black woman, just as smooth as a winter night. Get you a jet black woman, oh Lord, she'll treat you right. Jet black woman, good Lord made anything, but he kept it for himself. Jet black woman, good Lord made anything, but he kept it for himself. You know I looked everywhere, I ain't found me nothing there. Yeah. Thank you.
Kim, it's been a real privilege spending this time with you talking about the history of the Delta Culture Center.
Kyle, I've loved it. And, you know, one of the things that I've realized since we talked not long ago was that who really I am professionally was formed here at the Delta Cultural Center. And I have to say, just one more quick story because I left it out. You know, I only had one governor during my time here at the Delta Cultural Center, and that was Governor Mike Huckabee. And he loved coming to Helena. He loved performing on stage of the King Biscuit Blues Festival. So I hope
he was a great blues performer.
Yes, and I'm excited that y'all may be able to get some of the footage in there. But he was so nice, and I always tell people, you know, during King Biscuit, I run around in a golf cart, and they'll say, "Do you know what you're doing?" And I'm like, "I was Governor Mike Huckabee's personal chauffeur doing 10 King Biscuit Blues festivals. I know what I'm doing. I really don't, but it's people like him and Bobby and Secretary Hurst and the Cunninghams. You know, the Delta Cultural Center would not be what it is today if it weren't for all the support that we received from so many great people."
Absolutely, absolutely. And with that being said, I couldn't say it any better than that.
Oh, well, thank you.
So thank you, everyone, for joining us for the Delta Cultural Center's 30th anniversary. And with that being said, I'd like to now turn it over to our last musical act for the evening, Mr. Akeem Kemp.
your loneliness. I got to soothe. I'll play the blues for you. Don't be afraid. Come on and put the blues for you on my guitar. All your loneliness, I got to soothe. I'll play the blues for you. Let me play the blues for you. I ain't got no big name, and Lord ain't no big star. Wow, wow, wow. I'll play the blues for you on my guitar. All your loneliness, I got to soothe. I'll play the blues for you.